Hello everyone and welcome. In this video we're going to be doing a film review on the movie Hard Candy. It was released in 2005 as an independent film at the Sundance Film Festival. It was directed by David Slade, who's had a spotty career if you ask me. He's directed films like 30 Days of Night and also was in charge of the Twilight Saga Eclipse. He's also done some things for television. For instance, he helped direct some episodes of Awake, Hannibal, Black Mirror, and Breaking Bad. So some good stuff and some not so good stuff. The film was written by Brian Nelson, and oddly enough, American programmer and business magnate Paul Allen, of all people, helped fund this project as a producer. If you don't believe me, you can look it up. Production companies who made the film include Vulcan Pictures and Launchpad Productions. The film was purchased by and distributed by Lionsgate. The film had a budget of $950,000 and made around $8.3 million at the box office, so financially successful to some degree in relation to its initial investment, but had mixed reviews from critics and audiences. The film was edited by Art Jones, and the cinematography was Joe Willems, both of which I have a bone to pick later on in this video. But before I get into any of that, I'm going to go ahead and list off the cast and then go over the plot. First we have Ellen Page, who plays Haley Stark. Then we have Patrick Wilson as Jeff Culver. Then we have Sandra Oh, who plays a neighbor, among others. The plot follows a young woman, or an underage young-looking woman, who meets up with a 30-something-year-old photographer at a coffee shop of some time. They seem to move from the coffee shop to the 30-year-old's home. We can tell early on in this film that it's kind of like a sexually charged, predatory relationship. That is, of course, until a little bit later on when we find the old bait and switch, where it is actually the female, the young woman, who's the predator and subdues the man and is going to torture him in order to wring out a confession from him from some sort of crime he'd done in the past. I gotta say, since this film is a little bit old, it's been out for some time, this will be a spoiler review, so if you actually want to go ahead and watch the film without any spoilers, you can go ahead and pause the review, go ahead and watch it, come back if you want. But overall, it's a decent film. If you want to get my review right now, it's just a decent film, not really worth watching in my opinion. It's an okay film, it's not horrible in any way. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the reasons why I think so. But other than that, the main problems lie in the writing, cinematography, and pacing. So like I said earlier, it's not a terrible film, but it's not good. There are a few reasons why I think so. We're going to go ahead and start with the bad and then talk about the good near the end, as little as there might be. First off, the casting is decent. Ellen Page looks young in the film, not totally believable as a 14-year-old woman. She was around 17 in the making of this film, if I'm not mistaken. Later we find out that she's actually not this underage woman, but rather a younger woman who looks young, of course, but we find that everything she said up until this point has been a lie. We don't even know if her name is real. Now remember folks, when it comes to acting, it's all in the face. Mostly in the eyes, but it's mainly in the face, and when you look into her eyes, given the totally large amounts of intense close-up shots throughout the film, we'll get on that later, but when you look into her eyes, you can tell she has an ulterior motive. Not to mention, she doesn't behave as a young woman should. She even mentions in their meeting early on that she reads a lot, her vocabulary is okay, and those are things that would totally tip off a predator, I guess if they were smart enough to observe those pieces of information. If you're a predator, you're likely going for someone who's young and stupid, who you want to lure. You're like a spider or some sort of like sick animal who wants to prey on the weak. But, it kind of highlights his stupidity and pervertedness to just totally ignore these things as a predator. Plus, she says she reads a lot and has a decent vocabulary. Most kids that age, especially 14, are pretty stupid. You're talking about the middle school to high school range where kids pretty much don't do anything constructive. School really isn't really conducive to an educating, learning environment. So to see a kid do that shit is really like a red flag. It's like, you're 14 and you like to have a little library? No, I don't believe that. No way. Going more to the Predator, it was played by Patrick Wilson. The name of the Predator in the film is Jeff Culver, and the casting is okay with him too. He's not an ugly dude. He looks a little creepy, especially with the glasses, as like a weird, nerdy photographer. And he's not totally ugly, as I just mentioned. He's kind of decent looking to some degree, decent enough to be able to lure women into his home. So that casting choice for both of them is just okay. They did a good job. In terms of the pacing and writing, it's not good, as stated earlier. I do like some of the implications listed early in the film. For instance, the pedophile at their initial meeting at the coffee shop is talking about how through his career in photography, he focuses on the face and the eyes and how they never lie. But just a little bit later in the film, we find that she is lying and she did do a twist on him. So, I don't know, I just found that a little interesting, a little clever writing. However, that is unfortunately as good as the writing gets. The dialogue is missing so much potential. During the scenes where she's psychologically torturing him, they spend a lot of time just talking about needless pieces of information about the crime. They could have easily gone more in depth into the psychologically prying into the mind of a predator. You know, what happens to them to make them a predator, what characteristics make them a predator, and how to avoid someone like this, or even how to avoid creating a predator, you know, like what not to expose them to. And it could help a lot of people, but instead the film focuses again to, you know, look at very pointless pieces of information and fails to execute it in any meaningful way. They could have even talked about an addiction to pornography and how that his career might be an extension of that, since his career itself is him taking modeling photos of young women, mostly in like bikinis or like sexually provocative poses. He has some nature shots, but he's mainly taking pictures of women. They could have easily delved right into that, but they could have touched on those topics, but they did so unsuccessfully and went on to move on to a more boring, slow-paced conversation. This is what causes the film to drag on. Again, this is a harp at the writing, since most of the characters, or just the two main characters, Haley and Jeff, they come off as extremely, extremely unlikable. You don't really care about either of them. Now, this isn't me saying I advocate for pedophiles or pedophilia in any way. I'd sooner advocate for their public humiliation and execution rather than see them in any positive light. But somehow we can't even enjoy the female character at all. She comes off more as a psycho rather than some vigilante hero. We as the audience would rather see someone like this locked up and medicated as opposed to running around torturing men for crimes they may or may not have committed. I could be wrong about that. Maybe she was written in a way that in a more positive light. If you disagree with me or think that she is some sort of badass vigilante, please go ahead and leave it in the comments. I don't see it personally, but moving on. Another point of criticism, and this is a big one, stems mainly in the camera work and the cinematography. It's not good at all. You know, unfortunately, throughout the entire film, there is nothing but close-up shots of the face. You only really get like chest and here and above, sometimes even just the face. And this is, I'd say, anywhere between 40 to 70% of the shots in this entire film. I'm not joking. Now, I think personally that's a humongous mistake. I don't know who approved that or authorized that type of camera work to be done throughout the film. There could have been the reasoning behind it, such as that even though it's you know, a predatory relationship, it's creepy, it's uneasy and unsettling. So let's have the camera right up in the faces of the actors so that we can make the audience feel uneasy or unsettled. You know, that'll totally tie into what the film is about. Yeah, that's a little true, I'll give you that, but to do that for the entire film, throughout the entire film, is such a mistake. They could have done so many other things with the camera work to both convey that type of unsettling like situation, as well as had it flow naturally as a conversation or confrontation between these two. But instead you get nothing but these face shots. Like I'm telling you, it's like this throughout the entire film. If you want to be looking at someone's like their pores and like their nose holes throughout the entire film, this is the movie for you, and they just totally screwed up in that regard. It makes the film hard to enjoy, which is a shame because there is a plethora of sexual allegations and conspiracy theories and reports and convictions of pedophilia, child sex trafficking, and assault in Hollywood. It happens all this time. For instance, Harvey Weinstein is convicted for a sexual offense just a few years ago. So to see films like this fail so hard is a shame. You want more of this message out there to kind of criminalize and demonize these pedophiles and these type of people who are just like kind of prey on young women or women at all. So wrapping it up, I would pass on this film personally. It's okay to check it out. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. You guys are the best. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you want any more reliable reviews, go ahead and subscribe as mentioned. And if you even want to see certain films or movies or television series kind of reviewed, go ahead and leave them in the comments. I'll consider watching them if I haven't already. And that's going to be it. Thanks again. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.